Welcome to J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort. This episode we're going to be dealing with some history with J.R. This episode is entitled The Duke of Nonconformists. Get ready because Jimmy is going to narrate this particular story. Yes, I am J.R. and the timeline for this story is from November 9th through the 12th of, early the 12th of November. And so with that, not being able to find my phone stand, I will go ahead and put this down and read it to you. Use the computer. Okay. Just have to tap it up. There we go. November the 9th. Okay. So trying to find a stopping point here. Okay. Okay. 10:30 a.m. Central, November 9th. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, a longhorn is giving Betsy and the foreman double trouble, until they take a horsewhip to get it to go onto the truck to go to the North 9 for grazing. And the rest of the cattle follow from behind. 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, in Boston, Jim is swimming in the hotel indoor swimming pool. Today's lunch was going to be chicken fingers brought in by room service. Tonight he would be speaking at the Citizen Forum, hosted by Michael Dukakis and also attended by Ethel Kennedy. At 11 a.m. Karen's car pulls at 11 a.m. Central. Karen's car pulls out in front of the foreign language building, and J.R. gets into the car. "Let's go have tea and chicken fried steak," J.R. said. They drove to Skyview to have lunch. "I realize you're not your father. Just things are going pretty tough lately. The way my mother is," Karen said. "My father is hardly ever around," Gerald said sadly. "My mother micromanages because of him." 1 p.m. Central. Dr. Nelson Demetrius walks into the examining room at Texas Tech Health Science Center, where JR is, to talk to him. Well, I hope you are faring well. Your doctor at home said you collapsed about 2 weeks ago at a swimming meet. Said it was adrenaline fatigue. And you got some labs last week. Your thyroid is low, and so is your cortisol levels. I want you to go sometime next spring semester to the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm emailing your dad the recommendation so that you can go there. I know Dr. John Lowell is one of the best researchers in endocrinology. Graduated from Johns Hopkins, I think. You need to go see him. 3 p.m. Eastern. From Boston, Jim calls his secretary one last time for the day. During his speech, he had been inundated by voicemail saying that a rig in Rankin had broken down all along, with the one in Colorado City going good. Angry, cursing, and stressed, he told her to take it up with the head foreman or the company man, or else get fired. 3:30 p.m. JR is at the library at the Center for Visually Impaired. He cracks open his pocket house tutor, Brad Wilkes, asked him to read the book, The Duke of Nonconformity, a book about the beginnings of conservative federalism in England and America, written by Dr. Emmett Holland, professor of political science and Christian philosophy at Duke University. 4:30 p.m. Central. JR is still reading the book, The Duke of Nonconformers. And this book chronicles some of the writings of Adam Smith and The Wealth of Nations. Also citing Christian historian and activist David Barton. JR is mesmerized. 5:35 p.m. Eastern. In Boston, Jim and Claude get into black tie and coattails, attending the citizen forum would be John F. Kennedy Jr., Michael Dukakis with his wife Kitty, along with Ethel Kennedy. 5 p.m. JR is having dinner with Calvin Harlan at Crockett House. Chicken fingers, green beans, and cheesy garlic mashed potatoes. Seriously, JR, why don't you ask Sharon out? Calvin said. She sure cares more than Karen. We worked it out, JR said. She'll break your heart again. I'll cross that bridge whenever I get there. Man, she's been passed along between Bill Holden and you. Now, I think she's going to make the move on Brad. Sharon and Jennifer are public affairs majors with views similar to yours. Yeah, here's the thing. Number one, Jennifer is the woman with the plan. She helps me study and keeps me away from Brad. Two, I'm a conservative Democrat, so that you know. A little bit more time with Sharon and Jennifer, and you'll be easy to convert, Calvin said. 6:30 p.m. JR is giving his last public speech in public speaking class, a motivational speech. And Sharon and Jennifer are very touched by JR's commentary on mental health issues. 9 p.m. Eastern. The Citizen Forum dinner is over. Between the Chateaubriand, green beans, and loaded mashed potatoes, not to mention the champagne was flowing, Jim was able to woo political staffer Sarah Tidwell upstairs. Less said about that, the better. 8:50 p.m. JR and Sharon walk outside of the mass communications building. He finds out from her that the journalism building contains the Center for Public Affairs. Okay. Here we go, November 10th. "4:30 a.m. Waking up and dressing, JR gets ready to go to the Gordon Hall study room, where he is studying briefly for his statistics exam. Dave Smith had been working with him last night through his homework and helping him study. 5:40 a.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, in Boston, Jim and Claude pack a bag to head to the airport for their flight, their 8:30 a.m. flight to Princeton, New Jersey. 6:30 a.m. JR is having breakfast at TMC with his cousin Joe. "So you chose public affairs," Joe said. "It's a good major," JR said. "It's got courses in public relations writing, political science, mass communications, and economics. I'm sticking to political science. Besides, this summer you and I are going to be speechwriters for your dad. And he chose that dim-witted friend of yours, Charlie Nation, to come on, up with us." "Charlie, great," Gerald said. "Oh, and I got my LSAT scores back. And I've been accepted at Texas Tech Law School." Okay. 8 a.m. Eastern. Jim and Claude get onto the private jet to fly to Princeton, New Jersey. 8:30 a.m. The jet taxis down the runway at Logan International Airport to go straight to Princeton, New Jersey.